There's this psychiatrist, a lady named Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. She has a theory about the black man in America. She says that because of the system of racism, the black man in this country has been made to think of himself as a baby, a not yet fully formed being who has not realized his full potential. To support her claim, she offers the following.
We're about ready to begin. If you could take your seats, please. Peaceful greetings, everyone. We're going to open with libation.
Greetings, everybody. Hotel, Bardani, Aquala. So we're going to do a libation, and for those who don't know, what we're doing is we are calling upon the energy of the Creator as it loves so below. As the waters nurture and heal, waters come down and heal and nurture. We give it back to the Creator, Mother, Father, God, Creator of all things. So if I say I go, you say Amen. I go. Amen. To all the sacred rivers, streams, to all the sacred deities, calling upon the protectors, the healers, the warriors, the sustainers, we call upon you inside. We'll call upon you, Pachu, the great ancestors. At this time, you may call upon those warrior mothers and fathers that you know, the freedom fighters. To all the warrior mothers, to all the warrior fathers, to all the teachers, to all the builders, to all the freedom fighters, to all the defenders and protectors of the African race, we call upon you. We call upon now your personal ancestors at this time. We call upon the ancestors of the Cress Welsing family at this time. To elevate, we call upon you one, we call upon you all. Those ancestors known and unknown. We call upon you to open your arms, to open your spirit in receiving your daughter who is returning home. We call upon you. We call upon those ancestors in her family lineage, those healers, those doctors, those soothsayers, those herbalists. We call upon you to receive, to receive, to receive as she is making her journey to the realm of the ancestors. We call upon you. Yasumo Ayodin, we ask for strength. As African people, we ask for strength to the Cress Welsing family. Yasumo Inshia, we ask for wisdom. We ask for wisdom of the ancestors. We ask for the wisdom and the insight that Nana Welsing has left us, that she take it with us and magnify it 100 times fold on the other side. We call upon you, we ask for sikha, we ask for wealth. We ask for spiritual and material wealth. We ask that she exemplifies and magnifies the wealth that she has given us as African people on this side. Mi pacha emi akofa ama nyamiche asajudi yere so amni yere. I come here on behalf of the community. I come here on behalf and representing the Cress Welsing family to open the way as we continue the assistance to our Queen Mother, Nana Frances Cress Welsing, as she ascends to the realm of the ancestors. This is a day of honor. This is a day of praise. We ask Okano Asurjabi God, the great healer, the great provider. We call upon Aset, Ma'at, that which is just, to surround her and continue as she makes her journey to the other side. We are here to give honor and praise to her work and to say, Midawasi, thank you. Thank you for a job well done. Thank you for the lessons. Thank you for the gift of restoring our identity as African people. Thank you for giving a vision, a word, to the level of discrimination, to the atrocities that have been done to us as African people. We say thank you. We are here to say that we love you. We will take your word. We will continue it in our lives. We say Medawasi P. We say thank you, Madasi, Madasi, you are Monica, Madasi, Nanani.
Peaceful greetings again, and welcome to the Cress Welsing Institute. My name is Sabrina Johnson. I'm a longtime devoted student, one of many longtime devoted students of Dr. Welsing. We're here today. This is so different. The Cress Welsing Institute has been functioning for close to probably over 3 decades. And tonight we're here without the physical presence of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who has changed our lives and changed the course of history. So we want to say thank you. And also, just by a show of hands, those of you who have not been to the Cress Welsing Institute before, could you just raise your hand?
Welcome.
We opened with libation, which is a traditional African approach to prayer. But I also, as we move forward, as challenging as it is, if we could keep in mind to amplify Dr. Welsing's words, her ideas, her courage, her strength, her fortitude, her perseverance, and in as many ways, as much time as we can, listen to her speak in her own words. So with that, I'd like to share, and I'd like you to participate in a prayer that Dr. Welsing wrote. It's a liberating Black people's prayer for justice and peace, to say and envision when in prayer. So we'll do this call and response. Thou who art blacker than a trillion midnights, whose eyes shine brighter than a billion suns, thou whose hair doth coil, tighter than a million springs, radiating all energy throughout the universe. We beseech thee, one and only one, to give us total strength, to carry out thy will for the universe, to establish justice on planet Earth, and live in peace. That's Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. support each other in healing and stepping forward with our lives enriched by the teachings and the prime example of Dr. Welsing. So I'll talk about the mechanics of the opportunity for anyone to come forward and share their remembrances of Dr. Welsing. But first I want to give a little bit of background about the Cress Welsing Institute. The most recent iteration of it, we'll say in the last 20 years. So the Cress Welsing Institute is a lecture series that Dr. Welsing established, convened, and carried forward all these many years. We were meeting on the second Thursday of the month here at Howard from 7 to 10 officially, from September through through June every year. And people of all ages, of all stations, as they say in life, came to share. So it was like a lecture in a classroom. It was problem solving amongst community, and it was psychotherapy, all free. And the other feature was that Dr. Welsing would compile a package of materials. It included her definition of racism, white supremacy, the 17 stops in terms of behavior for mental health, which we will review. Thank you, Dr. Delani. And news articles, because it's everywhere. Once you understand the fundamental construct of the system of white supremacy, you see it everywhere. So all of these news articles we would discuss. And one of the great things about the Institute was that it supported and confirmed Dr. Welsing's concept, her theory. And she got confirmation all the time. And she actually was enriched by what students brought in terms of magazines, news articles, questions, dialogue. So it was a laboratory, a learning laboratory as well. And we are so thankful and know that we're so blessed to have had her in our presence and walking closely with her for so long. And she is within us, and we will continue. We will step forward, and we will continue the Cress Welsing Institute. We're usually down in the forum room, which is downstairs on the ground level. We came up here because we anticipated many more people to come out. So join us going forward. We still have work to do. Her legacy will So I'd also like to say that Dr. Welsing was absolutely on her cosmic assignment. Without exception, without wavering, all the time. She faced all kinds of threats, dangers, FBI, CIA, all kinds of things. I've got a zillion stories to share. But she pressed forward. One of the reasons why courage was so bountiful with her is based on what she said. Once you understand the thing, you know how to relate to it. So just as if you understand lightning, you're not going to stand in the middle of a field and lightning storm with an umbrella and a cell phone. You understand it and you know what you must do. So although she is iconic in stature, what she has and did, we have and can do also and must. She used to envision in her mind friendships around herself. She was determined, and is determined, that we will replace white supremacy with justice. And we will carry that. The other thing is, you know, she wasn't relying on anyone else. She certainly shared and helped people understand, taught, and was patient and listened. However, she wasn't waiting on somebody else to stand beside her or behind her. She was going to do it herself. So every month, she compiled these documents, had them photocopied, with only her taking the expense. She also took care of the cost associated with securing the venue and refused to be compensated by us because she was on her classwork assignment. She was determined to do what she needed to do. So we give thanks and we note that example as we live our lives. I want to give big props to a longtime student of the Welsing Institute whose role and function has been indispensable. Brother Danny Quinn. He's a talented poet, but he had the vision to archive, to capture, to record time and time again. So that the record is on the record.
Yes.
We can share the lessons, the teaching all over the world.
That's right.
With the technology we have. So big props, Brother Danny. Thank you. Information available on how you can purchase CDs. Yes, he's in the back.
That's cool.
Danny, Dr. Galati is summoning you to come up front, please. Hey.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Greetings. You know, my spirit is so heavy. I mean, I always felt the need to. I work at night as an engineer, so I always make sure I have plenty of leave so I could be here second Thursday. And when vacation time came around, I always made sure I took my vacation the second week of September so I could be here for Doc because I knew I had to be here. Because I used to go to a lot of lectures and we didn't record things. People were just talking, and that'd be it. But I said to myself, I said, I need to record what she's saying because it's so important that we catalog this. Not just for us, but for generations to come. It is so great. Now something else that's been around for a long time. They remember when we started doing on cassette tape. Before that, I think we were doing on 8-track. No, we went that far back. But we went from 8-track to CD, and we're going to take it to the next level for the next generation. That's with the MP3. That's where we're going. So we preserve this stuff, you know, and don't let this die. We can't let this die. This is ours. She belonged to us. I don't care what nobody said anywhere around the world. She was ours. I I read all kind of negative stuff. I don't care for that stuff. We know who she was. And we know she loved black people. We know she loved us. I mean, my heart is heavy. Because we worked as a team all the time, you know. Sometimes I'd come out and run a little late, sweating like a bull. The doc would say, take your time, Dad, take your time. I said, I ain't got that much time. I usually set, when you get here, I had that stuff ready. You know, so I just want to thank all you all for coming out. And I thank God for her spirit.
Yes.
I feel her spirit. As a student of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, I coined the term for myself. And if y'all like it, y'all can pick it up. I call myself a Welsing Knight. K-N-I-G-H-T, Welsing Knight. Thank you.
We have known and loved Dr. Welsing for a long time. However, there's someone special amongst us who has known her the longest. So, she is no stranger to DC. She certainly is an iconic figure herself who has done phenomenal things and has left a legacy in the area of communication and journalism that is unmatched. This is Dr. Welsing's sister, Mama Lauren Cress Love, and she would love to come.
I didn't prepare remarks. I didn't know exactly what I would say. But I think maybe since I'm the horse's mouth right now, I would share with you several things. Since I have been back here these last few days since Frances transitioned, I've learned more about her than I ever knew. And I'll tell you why. We all probably have siblings or family members, and we know them as family members. But we don't know them out in the community, wherever. Or what? You know, we just don't know them. We don't see them with their friends, etc., etc. So, Frances and I are 11 months and 13 days apart in our age. I'm the oldest. And I'm 81, and she was 80. And she is going to be 81 on the 18th of March, and I'll be 82 on the 31st. So for those days in between, we were the same age. Well, back in that day, 80-some years ago, when people didn't even act like they had sex, my mother had me, and then she was pregnant again with Frances, right? So she tried to make us into twins. And so she bought the same, we had the same clothes, you know, for years. We dressed kind of alike, and although Frances was getting taller than me, but we dressed alike, and we still have similar tastes. So I brought her today in her jacket. And you know how well she dressed. Yeah, that, well, my mother taught us how to sew, and we kind of have similar tastes. Well, that's just, I was going to share a little more about her and about our family, because we come from a family of warriors. And we never thought of it as that, but that is what it was. We're from Chicago, but our great-grandfather came down in 1863 from Canada and joined the Union Army in Chicago and fought in the Civil War. Now, we didn't, you know, that was just family history, but it's stuff in the genes, I do believe. Our grandfather, well, Francis is actually from a line of doctors because our father was a physician and his father was a physician. So his father was named Henry Clay Cress, and our father was Henry Noah Cress, and then Francis is Francis Ella Cress. Now, we didn't know that grandfather, who was a physician, he died very early on in 1909 when my father was about 4 or 5 years old. But our grandmother always told us that he was what was called a race man. And that term is a term that is used at that time to describe people who fought for the race. And my grandmother always said that he spent more time fighting for the race than he did practicing medicine. And I do believe with all my heart that Francis channeled him. She channeled him because she has fought as hard for the race as she did practicing medicine. But the difference is that in her medical practice, she was practicing and fighting for the race. And any patient of hers will know and knows that she did something different in psychiatry, something that has not been done in psychiatry for black people. She looks at the case based on race. That's right. And she tells a different story, a different analysis, so that people coming to her, many people working for the federal government, who are being harassed out of their jobs and don't understand what is happening to them. Francis helped them understand it is not you. It is this system of racism, white supremacy that is making you think you're crazy. You know, giving you heart attacks, stressing you out. It's a system that we live in. And if we don't begin to understand where we are, we will have even a greater difficult time. Neely Fuller, who taught Francis, you know the story, many of you. Neely Fuller says, if you do not understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else you think you know will only confuse you. That's it. Now, we are all heartbroken. We are heartbroken because a Harriet Tubman, a Sojourner Truth, Mary King, the list goes on, has left us. But she wasn't going to be here forever. 17. If we just did that, you don't have to get real deep. Pick up the trash in the community. Just the 10 stops or 17 to Francis add more. Just do those little things. Stop cursing one another. Stop squabbling on each other. Just simple things. Start loving ourselves, which is so hard to do because all this killing that's going on out in our community, and I live in Chicago now, and it's killings every single day. And everybody's talking about those children. Those children. Those children are us. They're us. It's like on a scale, sometimes I say on a scale from 1 to 10, you know, 10 being the most, 1 being the least. Find your place. Well, they're us. And they are a reflection of what we have or have not done. So I want to commend Francis's students. You all know a lot more than I do, because we just talk on the telephone, you know, blah, 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 well, I did so and so and so. Well, I can't talk long now because this is Wednesday and tomorrow is Thursday and I have the Institute. I know all of that. But I did not have the privilege of month after month sitting at her feet. I probably wouldn't have done it anyway. I'm the big girl. I'm the big sister. That's really not totally true. That's really not totally true. Francis was a perennial student. Since I've been back, I'm in her house. And her house is full of books, newspaper articles, a lot of clothes. But everywhere you would turn, and there are some people who came to kind of help straighten stuff out a little bit. Newspaper articles folded back, underlines, under yellow tablets, thoughts written on it. She was thinking every day. She was reading every day. She was analyzing every day, looking at what is going on with us, looking at what is going on with white people that affects us. And anybody who has been in that house can attest to that. I mean, you can go, she's got articles that go back to 2008 and 19 so-and-so and so-and-so. Newspaper articles that she would be saving. She was a perennial student and a thinker. She really was a genius. You know, a genius. Now, because she was my sister, you know, and I was how many months or whatever older than her, I didn't really think she was a genius. But that's not true. I thought she was smart because we were like about a grade between us in school. And in the 6th grade, she got what back then was called a double promotion. You know, so she skipped a grade. So we ended up graduating from grade school together, high school together. And at that point, my mother had us going off to college together. I just said, I can't take it. I didn't say it like that. I didn't say it like that. I just didn't do what I was supposed to do to go to college with her. And didn't understand it for a long time. But it was, we needed to, you know, kind of go our separate ways. But we took piano lessons together, dancing lessons together, drama lessons together, you know, on and on. So we were very close. don't know what's going to happen next on that side. We also have a younger sister, and right now she has challenges also. So this is a certain time in our family history. The Institute must continue.
Yes, that's right.
I am not sure that any other philosopher, teacher, thinker has for over 30 years, every month from September to June, without pay, had an institute to teach people something free. I don't think so. I don't think so. There may be something that I don't know. And she was, I mean, this was as much a part of her as breathing. Every Thursday, on Wednesday, she would start, well, she would be pulling the articles together over the week maybe, or sometimes, you know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks a month. But, I mean, it was a pattern. Put those articles together, she went to the printer, had them printed, had them set up, and brought them to the Institute. It was a pattern. Everybody knew. Second Thursday, Frances Welsing is her institute. One time, years and years ago, it was at Howard E. Before that, it was up at Howard in one of the schools. School of Social Work, exactly. Then it was at the Howard Inn. Then it came to Blackburn Center. Once they got rid of Howard Inn, which was political also, as you look and see what's going on in Washington, D.C. That was an early political move to keep black people away from each other. Yeah. Because if you remember the Howard Inn, back in the 80s, because I lived here, you could walk in the Howard Inn and you could meet anybody. D.Gregory held sway there all the time. So all kind of people coming through Washington, D.C. were at the Howard Inn. Jesse Jackson ran his part of his campaign. His wife had a room there, maybe both of them. So it was a very political place. So when they got the university to get rid of it, whoever it was that did it, was making a political move early on against black people in the District of Columbia. Now, I'm not going to take all this time, but I do think that I must say, that we are under siege as a people in this country. The program is to move you out of the city, all over the country. Then you will lose political power and you will be nothing. You will have no say and you will have no jobs. Just look at what happened in South Africa, because it's a South Africa plan. They're creating Bantu stands. They're calling them suburbs right now, but they're Bantu stands, where we don't have political power, where we don't have jobs, where we will be killing each other even more. Now, I left Washington, D.C. in 1993. And since I have been back here, I've been back here more days, I think, than, or maybe not, but because I worked at the Folklife Festival back in '09. But I wasn't really in the city. And the city is changed, as we know. And people saying it's all over. Well, I think whatever you say, you make true. So if you start saying it's all over, it will be all over. If you get some other words, you know, use those other words to create a new and positive reality. One thing about, I guess a psychiatrist knows that whatever you think, you make true. And so whatever you think, whatever you decide, whatever you envision, you can create. And so let us continue to create justice and peace and harmony and love between ourselves. Let us do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mama Lauren, co-founder of WPFW. Mama Lauren has certainly warmed us up in here. Yeah, and I want to continue with something really critically important for us all to note. And it's something that Dr. Welsing noticed many months ago. The ISIS papers. Her seminal work focused on her and her theory, which has never been refuted, by the way. The system of white supremacy is at another level of desperation now. And so it is more critical for them to make sure that more black people do not get introduced to these concepts, to an understanding of racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works. So, most of you may recall that this is the Cress theory that was published in 1970. And Dr. Welsing designed the cover, and it is to graphically represent the planetary population. So it's this planet, mostly black, and just this tiny white minority in the middle. Right? So when you look at, when you hear the term ISIS today, unfortunately, what are we programmed to think? A terrorist organization. And if you notice the flag, it is a graphical representation of this. It's just, if you squared that, it's the flag of the so-called terrorist group ISIS. It's black, it's got a white dot in the center, it's got some white writing up top. So, you would think that's enough, right? So, Brother Don, right? He brought us, and this is what happens at the Institute. It's not just Dr. Welsing lecturing. People bring evidence and discussion items too. So, Brother Don announced at the December lecture, and he just shared these documents with me. The Guardian newspaper from the UK, right? The ISIS papers. They're referring to documents on how this terrorist group, so-called ISIS, has built its structure. So we have to protect the legacy of Dr. Welsing and the information and make sure it gets to the next generation and the next generation after that. So the heat is on. The ISIS papers being linked to terrorism, how many people is that going to deter from reaching out? It's a significant obstacle, and we have to really strategize how to help people not be afraid to reach for the solution, the key to our liberation. So we're going to be discussing this at the Institute going forward. So I invite everybody to come and share and think and reason and dialogue. And also a couple of other things that we can do to not only keep her legacy alive, but do the work that we need to do, because it's certainly unfinished. So, not just on the second Thursday of the month, but anytime, convene a few folks, your friends or family, pull out a couple of newspaper articles, and just start a dialogue. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King was known as the drum major for justice, and his holiday is the third Monday in January every year. So years ago, on the Sunday before that day, I started doing this, convening people, including Dr. Welsing, at my house, and we discuss racism, white supremacy. I used to pick her up at about 1:30 in the afternoon, and it was 2 a.m. when I was returning her home. So there are all kinds of opportunities, like I called it the justice gathering, because we were talking about strategizing how to produce justice and think about what's going on and what is it that we need to do to counter what was happening with us, whether it's on the job, in our families, etc., in the community at large. So I just invite people to think about that. In addition, train children to analyze news events. Many years ago, I was in the Boston area, and a few of us started a Saturday school for black girls. And in teaching African history, one of the assignments I gave them was to become a journalist. So I'd have them pick out a news article, anything that they wanted, and then ask a series of questions. What happened in it? Have them write a paragraph. How did it make you feel, etc. And so get them trained to read, but not just read comic books and assigned reading, but things that are going to help them understand what's going on in the world. So I just invite people to think of ways to carry forward the message and connect with people, particularly cultivating black self-respect in young people, in children, in youth. That was the key. Dr. Welsing talked about black self-respect. Justice is a byproduct of black self-respect. You can't get there without that. So there are a couple other things, items for the agenda that I wanted to share. Mama Janua Moja has some art and some discussion about what was happening with Dr. Welsing at her home to discuss. And also Mama Avana Walker has some insights about what was happening and the movement to protect and defend Dr. Welsing at her home. So perhaps in that order, if you would come forward.
Greetings, everyone. Greetings. I've been on Dr. Welsing since I was in my 20s. I'm in my late 60s now. It's been a wonderful journey sharing moments with her, myself as an artist, her as an art appreciator, and very creative spirit herself, very, very creative spirit. So I turned her on to an artist that had used her work as his template. And this is the work of a brother from Chicago, Daryl Harris. Daryl was a school teacher in Chicago public schools. And again, his work was all very social conscious, political, astute. And this particular one, as you see with the light, the thing about Daryl's work is so hard, it's like, who wants to put that on the wall? But he's making this statement that how the media was formed around. So there you have Kramer, Archie Bunker, Dog, the Bounty Hunter, all these white folks spewing racism, white supremacy every week, and we looking at these shows and smiling and laughing. And then you see the small white ball on the table, and but he's saying this is American as apple pie. This is American as hot dogs and what have you. So this is something that is used against us in the name of entertainment. This one is also, again, about guns and what black mothers have to suffer as a result of this. Could be Tamir Rice, it could be Michael Brown, it could be any of those. But again, the suffering of our families as a result of guns, that really this culture has no desire whatsoever to get rid of guns. And in fact, they all want more of them. So something we have to do to make a change in this. But I wanted to share this. This is this brother's powerful work, and this is one of my favorite of his. And it might be too small, but this is about hip-hop. How they always allow one at the top, and then you see he's on the mountains of skull and bones. Yeah, he's on the mountain of skull and bones, spewing out insanities to our communities. And this was only a 10. This is a lithograph. This is not a poster. So again, you see symbols. You see these poor young black people taking their long, hard-fought money to purchase the death of our community. So anyway, Daryl Harris is the artist. I have about 10 more of these. And Dr. Welsing and I were talking about doing an exhibit of Daryl's work. We just didn't get around to that yet. However, I want to do an exhibit this year, and we'll donate, if anybody wants to purchase any of the work, to the Cress Welsing Love Foundation. Another project which we ventured out on was the t-shirts. And you might have seen it, and we plan to have during the 40-day repast, 40-day celebration of her t-shirts. We put together 2 t-shirts. This is one of her quotes in saying, "African jeans wear with pride." And she has a signature on it. And then her other one is, "All colors are beautiful, but most black, most beautiful." So we'll have another series of these t-shirts printed for February the 11th when we get back together. But I call myself, being a friend, I called myself the art of distraction for her. But it really wasn't. When she came to my home, I would pull out videos, DVDs. And we would look at Flag Wars, the Bea Richards story, Goodbye Uncle Tom. And she was like, "January, is this what's going on?" Yes, this is what the media has perpetrated against us, how they've used so-called entertainment against us. So in the spirit of Dr. Welsing and the love that she's given us, we must, as everybody has said before me, carry forth the great work. I'll be the artful warrior on the field, and do so lovingly and working with our children as well, as much as possible, to carry on her legacy. Thank you.
Hotep and greetings, everyone. I am so honored, and I thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts this evening. Though you may not have seen me in a while, I've been working behind the scenes. Recently, I did an all-day workshop about, guess what? African-centered education. All right. For both staffs of both historic Roots Charter School and Roots Activity Learning Center, both founded by the revolutionary Dr. Bernita Thompson. I also joined with several devoted disciples of our beloved Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who was fighting for the dignity of her people for the dignity of elders, for the dignity of women, all of whom are being removed through gentrification from their homes. This is the modern day movement that years ago was called urban renewal, means Negro removal, and it is alive and awfully well today. She was fighting for her home, her dignity, and her life, her very life. Finally, after our community, all of you worked hard to get the only African-centered, the one and only, the first and only African-centered school in the American public system of miseducation, paid for our dollars, by our tax dollars. We didn't have to pay for it because we are supposed to learn our history through education. Every child's supposed to know Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, and everything she's about. Unfortunately, I have a prison ministry where all the brothers in there know about her now. They read about her now. We tried to get that to them before they got there so they wouldn't end up there. Tony and I made a dent in the system for our children to learn about their history and their heritage, because without that, you're not educated. The other thing that I did, and I would, since I have seen you, I would like to, at some point, ask the family if it's okay if we could honor Dr. Frances Cress Welsing for this Dollars for Scholars program we've been running since the 90s. Some of my students here who have received some of the $3 million we have honored our young people in this area with. We would love to name this program after our heart, our head, and our power, Dr. Welsing. I just want to share a couple things in terms of what we have done in support of Dr. Welsing. The movement I talked about, formed on her behalf, is called She Shall Not Be Moved. Amen. January's here, Sister Doreen, Brother Butler. So many of you helped support our efforts to do those things that I mentioned that we were doing. All right? And she was not moved. Her presence with us is stronger than ever. She loved us as a worldwide people, and she devoted so much of her adult life to her residency here in Washington, D.C. How blessed are we? How blessed are we? She could have been anywhere, but she was here with us. If that doesn't inspire us to be the fiery warrior that she was, I don't know what else will. I don't know what else will. I was blessed to have three powerful Piscean teachers. My father, Dr. Welsing, who I met through her work in the 60s and early 70s as a member on campus of the Black Power Pan-Africanist movement. And also Nana Kwabena Ogwaji Brown, who we worked with, our family worked with from the early 70s to start the African Cultural and Religious Society, which is now the Temple of Inyame. And one of the things he taught us was about African spiritual sciences, and astrology is one of them. And I just want to share a couple of things that I feel describe Dr. Welsing's spiritual, physical, and mental power. All right? Just a little blurb on the Pisces. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, and the inner self is preparing to retreat from the world. It is cleaning up the odds and ends that have not been cleared in the other 11 signs. For this reason, some students call it the dustpan of the zodiac. Our dear elder and spiritual representative on this earth cleaned it all up. You know, through every sign, through the highest spiritual apex of astrology, Pisces. I think it means that she cleaned it all up as she was a culmination and combination of us all. And she could heal people in her practice of so many signs and feelings and ideals because all of it was represented in her. And we've been blessed to be around that representation of all humanity in the form of African people on the planet. I want to close with an idea that Nanakwabena taught us. I hope I have it right, but he talked about the fact that there are spirits hovering around that don't have to come down for the human experience because they have ascended through all of that and are on the final highest level. So they don't have to come down and go through the trials and tribulations of what we go through to learn to become Christ-like, as Christians say, and learn to be God-like, Mother, Father, God-like, as the Africans say, which is the meaning for education, is to become more like Mother, Father, God, and to pass on our culture, those two things. So I think about Dr. Welsing coming, she must have been just checking us out from up there. You know, she done hers, it's done. But she said, oh my, ooh. You know how we used to say, this is a mess, I tell you. I got to get on back down up through in here, through the genes of her ancestors and parents who created 3 historic angels in the Cress family. She came down here for us to go through the relentless work that she has done. 24/7, she's teaching, healing, saving us, and telling the truth. Oh, that's all she does. Last thing on the Pisces. When they are true to their real nature, Pisceans have a high and holy destiny and are the true saviors and servants of humankind. They have a great sense of compassion and sacrifice themselves in utter devotion for the redemption of the world. And she walked among us. How blessed are we? Oh my goodness. I just want to, on the behalf of any parent in here and all over this area, to thank you, Dr. Welsing, on your behalf, because she specifically and literally saved our children and specifically our sons. Nobody could help them come out of the warfare on them or getting caught up in the system that's set up to catch them up in the system. Like Dr. Welsing, and I can speak from my own personal experience, she saved my son. And he soars today because she was in his life. Families that during the 60s and 70s, we were taught 3 things in our movement that the system that the doctor analyzes for us of racism and the system of white supremacy. Cut us off from our past and culture, try to destroy the black family, and try to annihilate the black man. So parents, don't ever be ashamed to take your son somewhere for help. Because somebody's black sons have got to go to prison. Somebody's black sons have got to be on drugs. Somebody's black son has to be annihilated for this system that the doctor has spent her life teaching us institutes in our communities. All right, the thing that I would like to share, even though I'm a member of the dedicated program, She Shall Not Be Moved, I haven't shared this request with them So I'll just speak on my behalf. But I hope after I share the request that everybody in here, I've got a whole bunch of white paper over there stacked up, would put their name and email address to join our movement to continue the work of Dr. Welsing. And I would share with you that there's two parts that I would like for us to undertake. One is to bring those to justice who took her life. In the legal battle that she never gave up, we wrote appeals and motions and whatever, and everything we wrote, we included the documentation from her doctors that what is happening with the noise from the Jewish Daycare Center and that playground that's illegally close to her. All right?
Right.
So we need to bring them to justice. And we've got a lot of court experience by helping Dr. Welsing these last 3 to 4 years. She can't do it all, but she did it all. You got that? We're gonna bring them to justice. We got the documentation, all right? They took her out so they could get that last house on 16th Street so they can control that corridor. And none of the city would help us deal with that. So they will be called upon to stand their day in the sun too.
I got ideas.
I hear you. And the last thing I want us to do, hopefully through our group that's been working, is whether we have to buy the house for the family, so it'll stay in their family, and we can use it to set up the Dr. Francis Welsing Archives, Museum, and Institute on 16th Street. We got to do it. How can we not? How can we not do it? To be on a higher level that we still got to try to reach. So I need for everybody's name and email address to be over there. How can we not? It's something called in my art reciprocity. How can we take all that she has given us if we can't even articulate and not do these two things? Can I hear amen? I want to see you there.
We want the block. We want the whole block. That's how you bring them to justice. Get the whole block. That's right. Then justice is served. Our block.
And I think we have some more information on that campaign, Sister Laureen.
Good evening. I had not intended to come up to speak, but I guess since I have been, as Danny calls it, a Welsingite, since I was a junior here at Howard University. I first saw Dr. Welsing in a room. Someone said, oh, this lady is speaking. What about? I don't know. When I left the room, my life was changed and I was on a quest. Shortly after that, I had graduated, and a few years later, my aunt, my godmother, had seen Dr. Welsing on TV. So she said, you're down in Washington, this lady's down in Washington, she's talking about racism, white supremacy, she has a book, you need to go get that book for me. So I found out where Dr. Welsing's office was. I went down there and I got the book. Now, you have to understand, my godmother is also my mother and my aunt's cousin. So if I got a book for my godmother, of course I had to get a book for my mother, and of course I had to get a book for my aunt, because they would not understand that. So everybody in my family by 1972 or 3 were also Welsingites, because they had the ISIS papers in hands. And when they had the Cress theory in their hands. And when the ISIS papers came out, I finally got Dr. Welsing to sign my Cress theory, which said the year 1972 on the cover of it, and that was in 1990. When I found out about her passing, after working with her so closely for the last 3 years, I can't tell you, I just went through in and out of crying. It was more like my mother or my aunt or my godmother had passed. And because I saw her more than I saw them. And I was around her, and I was her student and her mentor. And whether she knew it or not, I just loved her dearly. I would like to finally say that we cannot let the Institute die. We cannot let the movement of She Shall Not Be Moved die. We cannot let the idea of Frances Cress Welsing die. I used to tell people I had 2 idols. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, at the time she was still living, and Ida B. Wells. I think that they are 2 dynamic warriors, and now I had Ida on this side, and now I have Frances on this side.
Okay, as I said early on, this is a process for healing, beginning the healing process in our community. So we want to give people an opportunity to come through to the mic. There's one on each aisle, the center and on either side. And if there's anything that you want to share in the way of reflections on Dr. Welsing and her impact on your life, please do. And we'll just start. Yeah, and we'll start with Dr. Galati. If you could, brother, if you could pass Dr. Galati that mic.
Should I stand up or just sit down? Huh? You want me to? Okay. Yeah. You want me to get up?
No, ma'am.
I can sit down right here?
That's fine, absolutely. Yeah, we want to let people speak for about 2 minutes, and we want to start with you, Dr. Galati. Thank you.
I can hardly say anything at all in 2 minutes. I have to get up really fast. Frances and I were as sisters, and we spent so much of our time together talking about everything that could possibly be of value for us as a people. She was a psychiatrist and I was a psychiatrist. And we had both had training. She went on to become a child psychiatrist, and I went on to become a psychiatrist of the people who were mentally ill and criminally insane. And teaching. Because I think that in order for us to be able to do anything at all, we need to know the real selves, rather than that which is projected as being us, and our behaving as if we really accept that which is said about us. You will find if you go onto the web now and try to look up Frances Cress Welsing, you're going to have a hard time trying to find something that is pure, because they're going to have it mixed all up with a little bit of everybody else and including it. And of course, the young lady who came up, who was with the Black Psychiatrists of America, when they were up there trying to move Frances out of her house by terrifying her, they were up there trying to get people to sign complaints about what was being done by the school that's next door. That's another whole history story, because it started out being a Hebrew school, then it changed into being a public school and a charter school, then it changed into being a school for people who were part of the Islamic faith. And they terrorized Frances by not only invading her space, but moving so close to her house that if you put your arm out of her window, you would be touching some kind of gate or something that was outside. But she didn't let that really take over her. She said, we know who we are. You all are trying to say that you are somebody who you are not. And since we are the beginning of mankind, and I have all the historical facts to prove it, we can make black and white, but you can only make white. And in many instances, sometimes the whiteness is albinism on top of the whiteness that you are. But we are the beginning of mankind. Jesus Christ was black. And he moved out into becoming a savior for everybody. And then he changed his color. She had done so much research. And for those of you who want the ISIS papers, they are on the web now, 337 pages, but you better try to get them out of there if you can, quick as you can, because you know they're going to take it off. In fact, I noticed that you've noticed that the helicopters were moving down here, coming past the window, while we were sitting in here. I suspect somebody was taking some pictures out of there. That's not being paranoid. That's just being real. And they're trying to find out what is this meeting all about, particularly since it is about Frances Cress Welsing. It's about the fact that we have finally reached the point in time that we can no longer be standing in the shadow, looking at that which constitutes the world and trying to find ourselves in some kind of shadows and say that's who we are. No, we are the beginning of time. We are mankind. You came from us. We had to give you what it is that you needed. All you need to do is to take a look. President Clinton was raised by the black people. His mama was a nurse and she was in such bad condition, she couldn't take care of him. And his wife, you know, everything that she has ever said and written or anything has been banned from being a part of that which is available to people. When she was asked, how can you be a Republican married to a Democrat who happens to be the President of the United States? She said, I'm more than just a Republican. I'm a strong, firm Republican from South Carolina. He was the most ugliest, racist, who ever walked on two legs and said he was a man. And as a result thereof, if that was the kind of philosophy and the philosophical orientation she had, I'm surprised Clinton was even able to stay with her, because she was busily trying to man it over him and sissiify him as best she could, but she couldn't, because he'd been raised by a strong black woman who was a nurse for him. And he took care of what it was that was needed. Now, what else? What can we talk about it? I was on my way over here, and a young person came up to me and said, Mimi, I want you to read this. I said, and I read it, and I said, what are you talking about? He said, you getting ready to go up to the thing for Miss Welsing? I said, yes. And he said, well, go ahead and read it to them. Okay, and I said, all right. And I was trying to say, I don't know. Well, maybe I should read it. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. Even harder when you're down to see a brighter day. And even harder when hindsight's so 20/20 and you clearly see you could have done things a better way. Yeah, but I can't just sit and beat myself up and hide in shame and pride when fame is just around the corner. I can feel the moment about to blow up, and I just want my best friend to show up. I need you in my corner. And everything I got coming don't mean a thing if I don't share it with the ones that I love. That means you included. All the clothes and cars and money in the world that ain't love, no matter how I try to substitute it. So to wrap it all up, don't want to wrap you all up. But I gotta get this all up out of my system. So until the day that we can meet up and patch it on up, I just want to say what's up and hello. Hello, it's me. I was wondering if after all these years you'd like to meet to go over everything. They say that time's supposed to heal you, but I ain't done much healing. Hello, can you hear me? I'm in Carolina, dreaming about who we used to be when you were younger and free. I've forgotten how it felt before the world fell at our feet. There's such a difference between us and a million miles. Hello, from the other side. I must call 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done. But when I call, you never seem to be home. Hello from the outside. At least I can say that I tried. To tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart, but It's so typical of me to talk about myself. I'm sorry. I hope that you're well. Did you ever make it out of that town where nothing ever happened? It's no secret that the both of us are running out of time. So hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done, but when I call you, you never seem to be home. Hello from the outside. At least I can say I've tried to tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart, but it doesn't matter. It clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore.
Give thanks, Mama. Give thanks, Mama. Dr. Bellotti, we love our elders. Thank you.
My condolences to the Welsing family here, and you know, I've known Dr. Welsing for 25 years. I've attended her lectures for the last 16 years. I worked with Nearly Fuller down at the D.Gregory printing in the early 90s. But one thing I want to point out about Dr. Welsing, she went out and challenged people. She challenged Dr. Shockley. She challenged the American Psychiatric Association president. She sent the White House President Obama the ISIS papers. She was always doing that. And in closing, I called her one day 10 years ago, let her know some show on Fox. It was one of them talk shows, these black women hating themselves. She got her on TV, said 10 minutes later I called her. She said, I called up the Fox network, and I did get the chance to see Dr. Welsing at most of her lectures, including the last lecture last December. And I called her in November to let her know that there had been a threat on the campus, and in October when something for the handout about the student down in Houston who had found something in the textbooks about we were hard workers, immigrants instead of slaves. But I wanted to point that out about Dr. Welsing, how she just went out after all these people went to NAACP, Convention, Urban League. You all got to understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Since I heard that Dr. Welsing died. And I've been crying because she was like family to so many of us. And one of the things that I have been doing in my travels, I've made hundreds of copies of the Black Code for Self-Respect. When I send out cards, I put it in the cards. I go to London, I go to the Caribbean, I go to Canada, wherever I go, on the buses, in the streets, I give it to people and I tell them, here it is, you make all these New Year's resolutions. Here's some resolutions you need to make. The Black Code of Self-Respect. And we have to do everything. Dr. Welsing planted the seed in us, and we have to do everything to keep her memory alive, because she was our mentor. She was the kind of person that I looked up to, and I loved her dearly. And to the family, I say my heart goes out to you. She will be missed dearly. Thank you very much.
Race first. Race first. Yeah, brothers and sisters, I'm going to be very short and straight to the point. The queens have already laid it out. It's on us to do it. Right. It is not about me, he or she. It's about we collectivity. If you don't understand Frances Cress Welsing and true sovereignty, you missed it. So if you came here, she called you here. She is elevated now into her last rite of passage. And what we're supposed to do now, while we still are here in this mess, is get busy. Because we too are going to move to our last rite of passage. So as Garvey said, count on him to be the real Marcus Garvey in depth. Because if you don't know, that's where the real power is at, because we all spiritual beings having a physical experience. But don't make your physical experience allow you to continue to be so apathetic that you don't understand the real reason why. Up, you mighty race, we shall accomplish what we will.
All right, I think it's very fitting that we hear at Howard University, since Dr. Welsing was fired at Howard University for speaking her truth. And I think that her real legacy is sacrifice. She gave up a lot financially to speak her truth. She was punished for it. How many of us are willing to do that? How many of us is willing to most of us not willing to give up our lives, but they don't give up our lifestyles. My name is Kimon Freeman. I'm in awe of Dr. Welsing. I read the ISIS papers when I was 19 years old, and it was, as they say, about that life. And it really changed the way I looked at the world. One of the things that I wanted to do was to honor her in some way. And I'm fortunate that we got the opportunity to do that. We was doing a small event called the Black Love Festival. In 2008, we had Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, who was a presidential candidate at that time. Maybe you know about the other black candidate at the time. And she presented Dr. Frances Cress Welsing what we call the Fannie Lou Hamer Community Service Award. And a lot of the publicity shots that you see of Dr. Welsing holding a microphone is a picture of her standing on that stage. I'm grateful I had the opportunity to do that, but I'm ashamed to say what I'm about to say now. After receiving that award, Dr. Welsing told me that that was the first award she has ever received. And that broke my heart, because we don't acknowledge each other, the work of each other, and the sacrifices people took to get to where they are, doing what they're doing. So I just want to close by saying this. One, Black Love Fest will be returning this year, and hopefully with your blessing, we will figure out a way to better keep this institute alive and also take it into the sun so it can blossom. You know, it's harder to get people into these rooms, but it's easier to take this message out to them. So hopefully we can do that. But I want to say this. Many of us are familiar with the Susus. And for those who are not familiar, I will say quickly, it's a group of people who take their money every month and they put it in a pot and they collect and do things with it. Now there's variations of it. One variation is that everyone put it in a pot, and this month you get the pot, you get to do what you want to do with it. And next month what we should be doing or considering doing is that we all put something in the pot with the people we trust. And no one person gets that pot, but we as a unit vote on what we do with that pot so that we can collectively start throwing our weight around, because it's not enough to have possession of information if we're not going to activate the information, if we're not going to realize the results of having that information, and as we like to say, we're here to do something. So I challenge each and every one of you to find a group of people you trust and do something. Thank you.
Free the land. Free the land. Free the land. Peace and blessings. I just wanted to say that I deeply love Dr. Welsing. I met her up at Pyramid Bookstore, and she was such a jewel. She and Brother Hadari got into it a lot of times because she did not really want her books on the shelves. I don't know if y'all know that or not, but she made it known that it wasn't going to be staying on the shelf. I don't know if she wanted the stamp on her book or what, but she did not want her books actually to stay on the shelves. And that was a very powerful statement. And I think we as a people can strategically buy out her books at a certain day, whatever we need to do, because she's our hero. She's our national hero. And we need to go down to the Recorder of Deeds and tell that house, wherever she is at 16th Street, that this is our hero. And you can't touch our hero. You can't make it just because someone else person is right next to her. And we are the ones that have our own territorial jurisdiction. And we have to stand strong on that. Free the land. Free the land.
It's not a day that goes by that I don't say, like Dr. Welsing said, or like Mr. Fuller said, I'm always quoting Dr. Welsing and Mr. Fuller. It's a shame that I consistently have to explain who Dr. Welsing is, so I go into it about the movie Baby Boy, I go into it about the Fear of Black Planet, etc., but I get upset that I have to do that, but I'm excited that when I am doing it. It was an honor and a pleasure to be able to go to lectures. I was going to lectures since about 2007, and I just honestly feel like I was a part of something that was big. I'm only 37, so I wasn't around during the King era, but I feel like this is like someone on that level. So being able to go to the lectures and listen to a Dr. Welsing, and even call Mr. Fuller. I used to call Mr. Fuller quite often, and he would talk 2 hours straight. For people who spoke to him on the phone, and I mean just dropping major jewels. So I even thought that was like major, you know, to have someone like that you can also call. You can ask him anything. You could call Dr. Welsing. You can have a session with her, whatever you needed. I thought that was major. So her passing now, like a lot of brothers and sisters have said, we got to keep it going on. I was like, you know, if I hit this $1 billion, I'm definitely going to do something with Dr. Welsing's name. I mean, I was thinking all of that, but we don't have to have $1 billion to keep her legacy going. So I hope everybody is serious with the emails, what the brother right here said, and I'm sure what other brothers and sisters got to say about keeping this thing going. That's it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was about 21 years old. I've known Dr. Welsing for about 40 years. I met Dr. Welsing when I was incarcerated. I was doing 60 years. I was a juggernaut. I'm out of Baltimore City. I grew up right there in that area where Freddie Gray got killed. Back then, you could see Thoroughbred Marshall walk up and down the street. That was the area I came from. Lower middle class, black people, working people. But anyway, I was well educated before I went to jail. When I got there, remember, he was a young man. I mean, chaos. Because I didn't have the keys to the car. And ontology, the ontology of people of color, the ontology means the study of reality, means that we are not only a materialistic people, we are spiritual people. And the spiritual is greater than the material. So I was reading an Ebony magazine about 71, sitting in my cell. And it was an article by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, never knew her name. And it was called the MF, and the original MF. I ain't gonna say the word. And I said, yeah, young man, I'm in a prison with guys that got murder charges, burglary charges, rape charges. These were grown men. They were gorillas. And I seen this article, I said, oh my God. It framed me, it helped me frame, it gave me some idea what I needed to understand about my ontology, my reality. And it also, epistemology, the study of the validation of where knowledge comes from. It came from Dr. Welsing for me, epistemology. So I wrote her. This sister come up in that joint with that black leather on and that bush. I said, oh my God. And you know I was feeling it, because I'm a Pisces too. But the point I want to make is that this woman did not have that fear of coming in the joints. When we were abandoned, my generation. We were abandoned because we the only people, African-American people, that have been told, that have been psychologized. Check out what I'm saying. The culture has told us that we are separate from our children that are incarcerated. You see Jewish children incarcerated like that? You see white children incarcerated like that? We've been psychologized. I'm now a counseling psychologist. 3 degrees, African studies, because of Dr. Welsing. African history. So, the number one thing about this sister is that I picked up about her. This sister had that focus that a Pisces has when he or she is not out of order. She had that focus. She sacrificed. She could have did anything. She had the money to go hither and thither. But she did it for us. And now we're in such a situation. Check out what I'm saying. If you can dig down and rise to the spiritual level, you got to come up to the spiritual level. You got to go beyond that materialistic plane and see, because what the sister said about what Neely Post said, you don't understand that racism, white supremacy, and all else, we ain't going to do nothing but confuse you. And right now, many of us are confused. But underlying that confusion is that fear that they indoctrinated us with. But the spell, the good thing is the spell has been broken. Move around and listen to people talk. The people on the ground are talking there and saying, we got to do something. We got to change. Because our back is against the wall. It's our time, folks. Let's do it. Because we are the greatest people on the planet Earth.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Harbour Butler, and Dr. Frances Cress Welsing knew my mother. And when I heard that Dr. Welsing died, I'm the youngest of 12. My mother had 12 children. And she has a host of grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren, many of whom know of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. But one thing they didn't know is that what Dr. Frances Cress Welsing thought of my mother and their grandmother and their great-great-grandmother and their mother-in-law. So I shared with them a letter that I have a photocopy of on my phone that Dr. Cress Welsing wrote to my mother on September 29, 1973. And I want to share with you what I shared with my mother's descendants, what Frances Cress Welsing wrote about my mother. As we honor the courageous spirit of truth in the life of Frances Cress Welsing, MD, in 1973, Dr. Welsing penned a handwritten letter to my mother's name was Mrs. Julia Watson Rhines Steptoe Barbour. A handwritten letter, our Mrs. Julia, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, mother-in-law, after hearing Mrs. Julia speak and read her poetry at a hub for poets, writers, and intellectuals in Washington, D.C. I transcribe it here in the event the copy is not clear, and I forwarded a copy of the letter. Quote, September 29, 1973. Dear Mrs. Barbour, you are a genius. You are absolutely wonderful and marvelous. All black people should have exposure to you. You should be talking to and teaching thousands of black children. Harambe, and some of you may know Harambe. That's the bookstore, that's where my mother spoke, where Dr. Welsing heard my mother. Harambe should be commended for giving the 9 to 9:30 a.m. audience such a wonderful program. Sincerely, Frances C. Welsing, MD, CC Harambe staff. Then I wrote, brilliance openly and joyously recognizing brilliance. Unencumbered by childish envy, jealousy, and competition with your own. This summer, I had the great fortune, while on Howard University's campus, to stumble into a class being taught by Dr. Welsing. She looked lean, strong, and spoke passionately, standing the entire time for over 2 hours. I recall her saying that black people need to stop degrading each other, stop putting each other down, stop arguing, stop fighting, and stop overeating. My phone battery was at 0, so I couldn't record or photo her. At the end, for the first time in my life, I saw her, I approached her, I shook her hand, I thanked her, and I reminded her of her 1973 letter to my mother, and I told her I am Mrs. Julia's youngest, her 12th child. Alive in spirit, brilliant, brave black women, Dr. Welsing and my mother, Mrs. Julia Watson Rhines Steptoe Barbour. Please let us know what we ought to do to help her home become the Welsing Institute by financial contribution. Send us the email what we need to do so that her home stays there and is forever the Welsing Institute. Thank you.
Frances Cress Welsing Institute. How many of you are from the Pacific Northwest in here? Wave your hands. Yeah, it's okay, those who know. How many of you are from the Rockies? How many of you are from the Central Time Zone? Because many of the people in here are from the Mid-Atlantic or the East Coast. It was in the Garvey bookstore in Seattle, Washington. But before I continue, elders, noble elders, may I have the permission to continue to speak, please? Thank you. And as Mimi mentioned when she asked for Brother Danny to come forward, it is always appropriate to do the specific protocol. And I'm thankful for the family who's here. And as Queen Mother Lauren Cress knows, we've had a whole lot of fun at WPFW. My family sends not only the thoughts to your family, but we are people who work in the trenches. So it was the Seattle bookstore in 69, late, almost in the 70s. It was also the Sundiata bookstore in 1971 with Dr. Welsing. We had a study group. The study group was the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Also, it doesn't have anything to do with me. I just happened to have been a teacher at the Muhammad University of Islam, number 51 in Denver, Colorado. Because when I first heard about Dr. Welsing, and because she was out of Chicago, I kind of thought that she was scientificizing the Yaqub theory of the Nation of Islam. But I was to learn better, but that was on first thought. And then at the Congress of African People, the Labor Day weekend, 1970, we had big time debates, those of us. Some were only juniors going to be seniors at that particular point in time, but it was still connected with the bookstore. And then at the Sundiata bookstore in Denver, Colorado in 1972. Then when I moved to Washington, D.C., the Pyramid bookstore, matter of fact, it was really before that. It was when Hodari lived northeast, L-I-D-C-O. You told your story, I'm telling my story. And I can stand, and I have a minute. And the beautiful thing about this, my being a Mississippian on my mother's side. So we say anybody, even if they're not from Mississippi, they may be from Canada, but the Chicago are our cousins. My brothers and my sisters, the Honorable Charles L. James used to mention this, that I'm thankful that we who gave Dr. Welsing her flowers while she was here, and those of us who will continue to build the Institute. In my closing to the family, I love that terminology. Matter of fact, race woman, race man. And those of us who use these 1950s and 1960s terminology, Pan-Africanist and Pan-African, that, I think we need to go back and revisit the race man and the race woman at home and abroad, because we don't need to separate ourselves from the masses of the people. And as I came to you, always giving honor to Almighty God and the Spirit of Christ, the Black Messiah, as Dr. Welsing would say oftentimes when she's talking about or sensitive about certain people, she said, you know, I'm a Baptist. And let me sit down, because I'm more of a person who helps to encourage young people who are under 30, young people who are under 20, young people who are under 10. Because when we get to that generation, we will do what you call a hermeneutical application with their parents and their grandparents. One God, can you say that with me? One God?
One God.
One aim?
One aim.
One destiny?
One destiny.
For the Institute of Dr. Welsing and her profound teacher, Dr. Neela Ford. Thank you.
Listen more often to things than to beings. Well, now listen more often to things than to beings. They say the fire's voice is heard. Hear the voice of water. It is the ancestors' breath, for the dead are not dead. They're in our hearts, through the wailing child, and our thoughts and our minds. The dead are not under the earth. So Dr. Welsing is very much with us. And I'm here with you. I'm not a Malaya, one that speaks in parables. Most people know I'm a storyteller, I'm an artist, an activist, and an educator. And I want all of you to know that in any way in which you can utilize my energy, my skills, my purpose, I'm here for us to continue this legacy of Dr. Welsing. We've got to make sure that everything we do, we continue this legacy for the next at least 7 or more generations to come. Now there is a list practically over there with a young woman named Michelle. Would you raise your hands up, Michelle? Where we want to make sure we get all of your emails so we can consistently and in an organized way stay in touch with all of you that are in here today. So before you leave, please make sure that you give that information. And I do want to share briefly that Dr. Welsing is one of the reasons why I'm in DC. I've been here 30 years. My mother's Mary Wilhelmina from New York, and my father's Ebenezer Ray from Barbados, West Indies. But I have been in DC 30 years. But before I came here, I was on the West Coast in California, and I heard her first on the radio. And of course, here in DC and New York, there's a lot of strong concentration of African-centric thought, so I was surprised to hear her on the radio. But I also got a chance to meet her not too long after that, and then found out, of course, that she was here in Washington, DC. Now, prior to California, I lived other places, including living in Asia for a few years, and I had said, you know, the only other city I think I want to live in is Washington, DC. And because of all of you, I'm very grateful I'm here, and because of her, I'm very grateful for someone that gave her gift and gave a class and shared her gift free, you know, to all of us. Most people know I teach dance, I teach drama, I teach yoga. I would stop my classes, they were oftentimes Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I would stop them on the second Thursday of the month and bring my class. I said, you know, we need not only physical fitness, but we need mental and spiritual fitness. We're going to listen to this woman because she's going to feed us and make us fit in another way. And also during the time of the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March, I had some godchildren and children who were out of town come up, and we went to her class that Thursday before that anniversary, and we were able to spend time and take pictures. And of course, as vibrant and healthy as she was, I had no idea, of course, that she would not physically be here. But I have to say that honestly, I'm not feeling too much sadness because I know she ain't gone. And I know that she's in each and every one of us. And she will continue to manifest clearly by some of the things we've stated and some of the things that we will do from now on. And I'll just end with, she shall not be moved. She shall not be moved, just like a tree that's standing by the water. We will not be moved. God bless all of you.
My name is Ian Smart. I've been in the faculty here at Howard since 1977. First of all, my condolences to Dr. Welsing's family. And let me say that I saw Dr. Welsing professionally a couple of occasions. That might explain what I'm going to say. Give the reason what I'm going to say. Look, we talk about self-respect. That's fundamental. Now, Howard University is the premier historically black college or university. How come it's named after a man who was a white man who was engaged in that campaign of genocide against the First Nations people? That seems to me to be not consistent with self-respect, or maybe it's just because I'm somebody who is a little bit, who needs the services of a psychiatrist. Whatever it is, I just wanted to bring that up in honor of Dr. Welsing. Thank you.
My name is Valerie Walker, and I just want to say I became introduced to Dr. Welsing when I was in my late teens in college in Boston, Massachusetts. And I was watching a film and she challenged Dr. Shapley about the inferiority of black people. And I'm telling you, the two things that struck me the most about Dr. Welsing was her calmness. I mean, this woman was calm, and that was something I wasn't. And I was just in awe. Wow. This man was saying all this stuff, and this woman chewed him up, made him look ignorant. And it was just amazing. So, I mean, the fact that she was so intelligent and so calm, I was in love. I fell in love with this woman. I was like, oh my God. She became my mentor. I was like, oh, I never thought that, what, maybe 20 years later, I would wind up living in Washington, D.C. and actually get to meet Dr. Welsing. And I met her when she was doing the, when she had an institute up at Howard Inn. And I walked up to her and I told her about my experience when I saw her, challenge Dr. Shapley and how great she was, and all this stuff, And she all calm still. Yes, thank you. It's really great meeting you. I said, oh, okay. So I started attending that institute, and I'm one of those people who my foundation was shook, and I was like blown away, did not know what to do. And I went to Dr. Welsing for counseling. And Dr. Welsing was able to diagnose my situation, which helped me grow tremendously. And it's still something that I use, and because I'm going to share with you all. She said, my diagnosis was what is it? Okay, I can't think, I'm a little nervous now, forgive me. But I'm a little nervous. But she says I have an acceptance disorder with anxiety. And when she said it was like, I felt like God just blessed me, because that was so true. I never have acceptance to the truth. I don't have a problem with accepting goodness, but I always had a difficult time accepting crap, nonsense, things that did not make sense, things that was just wrong, So when she said that, I said, yes, she's right, because I was always that type of person running around, I can't accept this, I can't accept that, I can't accept this. So what really helped me was she said I had anxiety, acceptance disorder with anxiety, because I'm the type of person, if I have a conversation with you, if something happens, I want it done then. I want you to get it now. That's part of my impatience, was one of the reasons why I love Dr. Welsing, because she was calm and patient. Yes. So she was my mentor. But I want to say that I grew up in East Elmhurst, New York, and that's where they had the bombing where they bombed the house of Malcolm X. And that house, someone lives in there, is their home, is no honor unless you know it. They did label it Malcolm X Street or something like that, underneath the actual street. But you would not know, or no one would come to New York and be able to go visit the home that would, they threw the bomb at Malcolm X. So I want to say, knowing that I hope we and everyone here and everywhere that we spread the word to make Dr. Welsing's house an institute. I mean, I hope we really get that time, okay?
Dr. Welsing, since the 1990s, also an engineer and a scientist by training. And one of the things I appreciate with Dr. Welsing is she, as a scientist, she's talking about the cultural and the spiritual dynamics of health of oneness in the system of racism and white supremacy. And our synthesis was bringing up a couple hours after Dr. Welsing had transitioned. Out of order comes disorder, out of disorder comes order. The only constant in existence is the intricate energy dance of change between states of being and awareness. Dr. Welsing was and will always be a grandmaster teacher of how to decode and analyze the systematic controlling feedback factors of cultural chaos and social hegemony. Dr. Welsing has gifted the African diaspora with a cumulative cognitive condominium of spiritual consciousness, prescriptive remedies, and epigenetic cultural protocols. That's a new addition to our ancestral African Intellectual Hall of Archiving Records. And Dr. Welsing is the master scientist. We've been blessed. She will go down the annals of history as being one of the grand teachers, like Imhotep and Carver and elsewhere. It's very rare that we honor a woman of science who had the people always at her heart.
There is a basket. We're passing the hat. Sister Nia over by the door. And the forum room, which is where we usually meet, is taken care of. However, the cost to utilize this room and all of the equipment, it was extra and unanticipated costs. So if anyone can make a contribution towards offsetting that, that would be much appreciated. And that's what the money is going to exclusively. So thank you. That's an authorized collection. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes. First of all, I'd just like to say good evening to everybody and condolences to the whole entire Welsing family and condolences to everybody in this room, you know, because obviously, you know, she did a lot to wake up our minds and to expose, you know, the truth about a lot of the subliminal oppression that is taking place within our community. I learned about Dr. Welsing's passing on Instagram, actually, and I had no idea. The night before, I definitely had a premonition, though, because as I was sleeping, like, I just felt a foreboding, like, I just felt a darkness, like, over me. So when I woke up and saw Dr. Welsing pass, I said, okay, that was probably it, like, maybe the connection that we share from the studying that I do, you know, came to me that night and was saying that, you know, one of the masters is having issues, you know, and transitioning, basically. So that's that. But what I would like to share before I pass the microphone away is that I just looked up on Google. I'm big into names. I believe names definitely have vibration to them, you know. Your name is for a reason, you know. So I looked up Dr. Francis' name right over there when I was sitting, and Francis actually means free. It means free. It means to free, to be free. So when we think about Dr. Welsing, she was put here to free us, to free our minds from the oppression, the white supremacy, racism that we were born into, basically. So she was playing her role, you know, she was doing what she fulfilled her destiny, basically, and now she is free to work on other planes. So that's basically what I have to share. Rest in peace, Dr. Welsing. I saw her on the brick wall right over there. I saw her face put over there, so I know she's here with us. And that's it, so thank you very much.
Praise the Lord. And I'm Shanice Patterson. They call me Joe. There's 3 powerhouses in here. I met Lauren Cress when I was 18, was a part of her development team for radio. I met Dr. Elise Galati and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing when I started an organization called Bring a Parent, and they were fighting the drug war with these 2 police, Cowboy and Mickey Mouse, who was going around putting sexual assaults on women that were on drugs when they would arrest them. And Dr. Galati had a drug mobile where it was driving around, and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing and her would be in that van. I was very young and very privileged to have the skirt tails of these strong women. But what I really want to say in short is this: they weren't scared, so I hope y'all not scared.
Good evening, my name is Daniel Landry. I'd like to open the door. I met Dr. Welsing looking at a DVD, Hidden Colors. and the hidden colors, she talked about the feminization of the Afro-American male. Come on. I said, what's that song? Hold up, wait a minute. Then she talked about at Morehouse, how they sent the memo, the president of the university, saying that the black males could no longer wear dresses and high-heel shoes. I said, wait a minute, not Morehouse. Malcolm said, if you can change your perception, you can change your behavior. Dr. Welsing has changed my perception. When I look at football, basketball, chess, I see something entirely different. Y'all know what I'm talking about. A black man can run a ball, kick a ball, hit a ball, but he can't have no ball. Is that right? Listen, Dr. Welsing is a woman I heard, and let me know when my 2 minutes up. I said, keep going, keep going. I don't want to get greedy here. I was sitting in the lecture, because I haven't been here long, so I'm going to have to figure out how I can get my knighthood. Dr. Welsing talked about how you take the word America, rearrange it. You get 3 words. I am race. What? I am race. This was about, wait a minute, hold. They didn't teach me this at Southern Illinois University. They didn't talk about racism, white supremacy, as a system. Dr. Welsing said, she talked about how when you try to escape from reality, it is insanity. So I'm sitting in there getting free therapy. Free, Sabrina. Sitting in there listening. The back row. Feel. Every week. I mean, you know, the second Thursday every month. So I'm so glad that it's continuing. Because one thing about me, I was raised in D.C. in the projects of Washington. And you know, the projects is a government test site. Don't tell everybody. It's a government test site. And I became addicted to a death stat. She helped me. So I don't want to be greedy. I don't want to be respectful. I want to turn this mic loose, but I got plenty to say. I grew to love that sister. And I was really surprised at her courage. I said, she don't kill nobody. She talked about calling the White House. She gave us a phone number, CNN. She done got me so when I turn on the TV, HBO, I won't look at Batman, Superman, all that fantasy. She said it's better to read than to look at TV. So I'm reading more. And I'm not reading Donald Goins. Thank y'all for listening.
And by the way, let me say, as we're reading the ISIS papers, also read Neely Fuller Jr.'s United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, textbook, workbook for victims of white supremacy.
Wow.
Dr. Welsing and Neely Fuller have a cosmic connection.
Yes.
And they've fed off of each other's reasoning and have presented in context for us an understanding and an analysis of what we're dealing with and how to react in the face of it in order to replace white supremacy with justice. It's a system.
Peace and blessings, and I want to talk a little bit about this health thing that's so crucial. Yeah, I definitely need to rap for it, because we got all these people dying from strokes and heart attacks and high blood pressure and all these other things, and it has to be addressed, because when we talk about racism, that's the epitome of it too. You know, they used to take black men who had to sit back and watch our women be raped and our babies starve to death and the mistreatment of our seniors. We had to sit back and watch us as soldiers. And just trying to hold all that in, you know. See, now we got high blood pressure boiling. We got diabetes, we got all these other things that are about to happen to us over a protracted period of time. So we look at my sister, Dr. Welsing, you know, who, I have an organization called the African Holistic Health Association that we started in 1992, I'm sorry, we started 88 and incorporated in 92. If it wasn't for Dr. Welsing, that organization, the first clinic that I opened up would not have been open. She's the one who guided me and directed me. She's the one who I went to based on that acceptance thing that my sister was talking about. I was diagnosed with that too, because I cannot accept this nonsense and all this stuff that's going on in our community. But the health piece is very important. So when we talk about healing and we talk about racism, we have to talk about the spirit, the mind, the body, and our environment. And the environment. So when we talk about holistic healing, people will say body, mind, spirit. So again, being carnal, being physical. But it's spirit first. This is what Dr. Welsing told me, Dr. John Chazelle, you know, and all these other people, D.Gregory, etc. For the last 40 years I've been doing this work. And made it clear to me that you had to deal with the spirit of the person. It was my spirit that held me back from opening up that first African Holistic Health Association clinic in 1992 and opened up the first HIV house in 1992 in Washington, D.C., where we were able to heal people, not using AZT that was killing people. And that was only as a result of people like Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, who made clear to us that the issue was our people's spirit and the mind, and that the body was the easiest thing to deal with. When them brothers was having problems back during slavery, they would have seizures. And they would hang them upside down so that the blood could rush to their head. This is what they thought could heal that. No, the only thing that could heal that, you put us back on the boat and let us go home. You know, and we have not been able to deal with that ever since. Every day, every black man in this country wakes up a little upset and they got to suppress it. Every day a black woman wakes up in this country a little upset and they have to suppress it. We got some people who say it don't even bother me. Okay, so we know that's the denial issue right there, that they are going to that point. But that too is racism, that they've convinced people to the degree that they don't believe that this racism has anything to do with all of the problems. Let me say it again, everything. And it's affecting lottie, everybody. Like my brother said, hold on, wait a minute. So it's people in this community who work in the hood. I work in the hood. And when I say I work in the hood, I work in my neighborhood, you know. And I work in Southeast, Northeast, Northwest, all over the place. But the people I deal with are the people who are suffering the most from this racism. These are the people who can't read or write, not like y'all. These are the people who don't understand anything about their emotional self. We're not taught that coming up. This is why everybody in this room and everybody out in the community doesn't know how to handle the emotions, the relationships, and the traumas, and all of those things. But we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about that, but we have to, because if we don't, all y'all gonna have strokes. All y'all gonna have heart attacks. The co-founder of the African Holistic Health Association, Dr. Gerald Douglas, is at VA hospital right now, had a stroke. He started the African Holistic Health, the father of holistic medicine in Washington, D.C. That's who he is, you know. And we have these issues in our community dealing with health that we're just trying to stay away from because we don't want to change the way we eat. We don't want to change what we're drinking. We don't want to leave the sugar alone. We want to leave the cigarettes alone. We don't want to use the alcohol alone. We want to keep eating pork chops and chitlins and so forth. After the church services, we go downstairs and, you know, we have a mucus delecti smorgasbord. You know, where we're going to kill ourselves. So, in closing, again, I don't know how to impress this upon people, but the organization that we started in 1992, myself and Dr. Douglas, Dr. Warren Harrison, John Giselle, Dr. Leila Africa, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing was an advisor for me for the first 5 years that we had that organization going. I went to her for 5 mental health sessions, so I'm like the brother too. You know, I went there and sat down there and she straightened me up in the first one, but I liked it so much I had to go back for 4 more. It was that good. So we have to recognize clearly, people, that we have to work on our mental health. Don't be scared. That was my sister who spoke just before me, Joe Patterson. So it's a warrior family here too. So Lauren, my blessings to you and your family, and condolences to you and your family, and let us push straight ahead. Remember, to heal a people is to help heal the world. Thank you. He said, remove the stigma from mental health. That's one of my sons over there. Come on, freedom.
Okay, our last comment, and then we'll go to Mama Lauren.
Greetings, everyone. I was exposed to Dr. Welsing many years ago when she was at the Howard Inn. It was a Latino schoolmate of mine that turned me on to her. My mother once told me after I had my 4-year degree, she said, you went to college and you got ignorant. And I was a little offended and I didn't understand it. But I'm going to have to say I thank Dr. Welsing for educating me, because I truly was ignorant about who we were, who we are as a people, our mission here. So I say thank you. I say everybody reach in your pocket and give everything that you can tonight to take care of the expenses here. Dr. Welsing gave so much to us. I mean, that was priceless and valuable and life-changing, what she gave to all of us for free. So whatever we can do in terms of, I don't know if it's crowdsourcing or fundraising, to make her house an institute that is available to all of us, but it is each and every one of our responsibility to do that. The money you spend at Starbucks or on anything, eating out, make a commitment for the next year. Every time you spend money on something frivolous, match that and put that money aside and give it to the Institute. My condolences to the family, and thank you.
I thought someone would say it. I don't want to be disrespectful to any elder out here, but may I have permission to speak about that real quick? Because we cannot talk about Dr. Cress Welsing and that vision. Is that okay? Yes. Okay. So,
Mike.
Oh, okay. I talk loud enough to speak for
Microphone check. All right. Does everyone here know about the 9 areas of people activity? That's very important. I didn't hear people mention that. Who knows about the 9 areas of people activity? The important thing about that is my son was doing a project. My son is 8 years old, and he does go to an African-centered school, but he was doing a project on white racism after they watched Hidden Colors at school, actually. So I said, hold up. You can't talk about white racism unless you talk about 2 people. Who are those 2 people? And you can't talk about white racism and talk about those 2 people unless you talk about the 9 areas of people activity, which are, you can do it with me, education, economics, entertainment, labor, law, sex, war, politics, religion. So let's remember, when we leave here tonight, it's not about the people in this room that have been seeing Frances Cress Welsing and hearing Nellie Fuller for the last 30, 40 years. It's really about the youth, those who are under 10 years old. And we have to make sure the new curriculum is not that garbage they've been taught for all these years by the Eurocentric educational system. The new curriculum is for them to understand the 9 areas of people activity and actually implement a plan to put a system of what in place of this system of white supremacy, a system of justice. So everything we talked about tonight, unless we do that, is futile. Unless we do what I just talked about, and we go to every one of our young people here in D.C., the weekend that we honor Frances Cress Welsing, on everyone's cars, we should have posters of Frances Cress Welsing. We should have all the lessons, the 17 things we need to stop doing. We should have the 9 areas of people activity listed. And I will tell you and this is the last thing I'm going to say. The last time I came to a meeting, some of you probably thought, wait a minute, how is he disagreeing with Dr. Frances Cress Welsing? I don't know if any of you remember that. But we actually had a discussion, and we had a slight difference on something. And you know what she actually said? She said, oh, he can teach the class. And I'm showing you right now that yes, I can teach the class. You can teach the class. And she's not here anymore. So we're going to have to teach the class. And we're going to have to stop talking about our youth like they're a lost generation. If they're lost, we got to go find them. And we got to implement All right?
Thank you.
That's the real revolution, y'all.
Sisters and brothers, I've been living in Chicago for the last 20 years, a little bit more than 20 years. And one of the things that I'm realizing as I'm listening to you and seeing you is that you have something very precious here.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of times, you know, it's like if you are in a place, you don't recognize necessarily the comparison to maybe other places. But I want to urge you, plead with you, let me go back. There are different groups of people in Washington. Some of you are nationalists, some of you are not, some of you are Africanists, some people, even people who came to support Francis, been at the house, those people, you know, well, anyway, what I'm just saying, band together, support each other. You don't have to agree with everything someone says to protect Francis's image, our image. This is the nation's capital. This is one of the most important places on the planet Earth. If they can destroy African American people here, the rest is up for grabs. So all I want to do is to urge you to pull together when you can. If you can't, do your own thing, but do it out of love for us and for our people. That's all I would want to say in closing, that you don't know how precious this group is. I live in Chicago, and we are not that organized. We are really kind of pitiful right now in Chicago. I'm serious, you know. You got a group over here, you got a group over here, but it's not the same. It doesn't have the same spiritual undergirding that you have here, that I noticed, but it's just maybe common to you all. So all I'm just saying is that because Frances was here, that has significance. Because she was here, for the years that she was here, and the teaching that she was doing, that's cosmic. That's cosmic. So understand how precious it is, and how much we need all of you and all of your thinking all over this nation. Because what's happening here in Washington, D.C. is happening all across the nation. It's the same program, the same plan, the same. As a matter of fact, this was a pilot. D.C. was a pilot for gentrification. And if you just Google spatial deconcentration and understand what happened to that young sister who had a gun put at her head when they were working against gentrification. Spatial, S-P-A-T-I-A-L, deconcentration. A young graduate student from Howard University. Read that and you'll understand what's going on, not just in Washington, D.C., but all over the country. It's our job to keep the work going. Thank you.
I am so pleased to have the opportunity to present the Fannie Lou Hamer World Community Award to a woman most deserving, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. I present to you Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, 2008 recipient of the National Black Love Festival Fannie Lou Hamer Award.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am deeply honored by
to be the recipient of this wonderful award. I say wonderful because it is named after one of the most courageous women, I won't just say courageous black women, one of the most courageous women in American history. So this is a fantastic event. It was wonderful to see the people present their financial contributions so that we can do this again.